Time for another top 10 list. I think it's time for another one. I haven't done one in a while. So what am I going to do this top 10 list about? I'm going to do it about the top 10 disasters that have happened in the history of video gaming. Now, I'm not going to include the crash that happened in the 1980s. I'm not going to include E.T., and I'm not going to include Mass Effect. Those are essentially on everybody's lists, and it's just way too cliche. I wanted to make my list, different from everybody else's, because I'm not going to hop on the E.T. There's no reason for me to hop on the E.T. Mass Effect bandwagon of bashing these for for their mistakes and how it was handled. But for my number 10, I've put down World of Warcraft Cataclysm. Cataclysm, what we saw and what we got were kind of different things. We got a level cap to 85. Cool. We got Worgen as playable. Cool. We got Goblin as playable. Cool. We can fly in Azeroth. Cool. What went wrong? Endgame content, really. What they mainly focused on was revamping the 1 through 60 leveling experience. Although they really should have revamped the 1 through 7, the 60 through 70 experience as well, because that's kind of dated. But they changed and they moved the story along, which that's fine. But what they screwed up on was all the endgame content. There was essentially none. And a lot of the stuff, dungeons and raids, were kind of easy. And also, during the whole time of Cataclysm is when they lost essentially, 3 million subscribers? They're now at, 9 million? They've lost a lot of subscribers since the launch of Cataclysm. And that's got to tell you something. If you've lost about a quarter of your player base, of your customers, you screwed up somewhere. Let's look at patch 4.1. Nobody liked it because it took 2 old raids and converted them to level 85 heroic dungeons. And it did not move the story along. It just kind of said, oh, here's the trolls. We used to be the dominant species on the planet, and now we're all facing extinction. And really, it was kind of... It didn't really expand on that. It would have been nice to see it expanded, but that's not what happened. Patch 4.2 came out, and we got the Molten Front and the Firelands raid. But we were also supposed to get a... what's that called? A new dungeon in Vashir. And we're supposed to get more Vashir quests that were supposed to finish the storyline. Because the story of Vashir ends when Neptulon is kidnapped by Ozamat. Or Azuma, or I don't know. The big giant octopus thing that happens in the Throne of Tides dungeon. He gets kidnapped by that. And what happened? Where is he? Where is Neptulon? We don't know. We just don't know. And it was never finished. We were supposed to get it. In fact, Blizzard said that they were going to focus more on the Firelands, and then they were going to do Vashir at a later point. 4.3 comes out. They didn't give us the Vashir storyline, and essentially it's been kind of just... people just said, screw it. What they also missed was... 4.3 was extremely easy. I mean, I remember seeing, what's his name? I remember seeing, world first Deathwings on day 1 of the patch. I'm like, jeez. It's because everybody played it on the public test realm, and therefore we knew everybody knew what to do. I think that was, and I remember when Ragnaros was, in 4.2, I saw the world first down a week after the patch hit. I know when the expansion first came out, it took them a while to get to see the it was a couple of weeks at least to see world first Cho'Gall being knocked down. But another thing that happened was in Cataclysm I didn't know that this was going on. In Wrath of the Lich King was probably the best expansion, but I'll get to that in a second. what I didn't know what was going on was what there's apparently a war going on between the hardcore WoW players, the people with absolutely no life, and they spend all day and night raiding and whatnot, and the casual players who just played, for fun and whatnot. I didn't know there was that going on because the hardcore players were going around saying, if you're not raiding, you don't deserve gear. And the casual saying, like, well, we pay our $15 a month too. We're entitled to content as well. And I didn't know that whole war was going on. And then when Cataclysm hit, they brought back those old school tokens and whatnot. If you wanted your full tier set, you needed to do the raids. And it just alienated, and the casual players essentially had really crappy gear, and they couldn't do it much with it. And the casual players were complaining about it for up until patch 4.3, when Blizzard decided to meet the hardcore and the casual players in the middle. And because they brought back the dungeon sets. And I said, that's a good compromise. If they bring back the epic dungeon sets like what they had in the old World of Warcraft and the Classic and in Burning Crusade, bring back those dungeon sets, I think that's fair. And they also brought in the Raid Finder, which allowed people to get gear, essentially tier set, kind of a watered down tier set from there. And I thought that was fair. I thought it's like, okay, that's fine. It's meeting everyone in the middle. Because I remember the reason why I think Wrath of the Lich King was actually better was tier 10 gear was probably the best example of it. At first, when the 3.3 came out, you had a dungeon set, but it was actually tier 10. What you would do is you'd go in and you'd get your justice points and whatnot, or valor. I forgot I think it was badges at the time. You go into there, farm the bosses, get your badges, go back to Dalaran, get your 5 pieces, and then you have your set right there, and you could use that for the 5-man dungeons. But if you wanted to raid, you'd take that set and go into Icecrown Citadel. You'd raid, and then you'd get a token. You'd take the token, go back to Dalaran, exchange that for the sanctified version of the piece of gear that you have. Take that sanctified version and then go to Icecrown Citadel Heroic. Do that, get that token from there, and get like the super sanctified version of that, and that's essentially the highest that you were able to get. And I thought that was perfect because, like, okay, all the people who are going to be in dungeons, this is perfect for them. They could get a dungeon set. Then if they want, they could take that dungeon set and upgrade it in the raids. That was perfectly fine. I didn't see a problem with that. And they did have a dungeon set for Trial of the Champion, Trial of the Crusader. Whichever one was the 5-man dungeon, I forget which one it is. But when Cataclysm came out, they said that they tried to bring back all the old school mechanics, which the player base was essentially more casual players of World of Warcraft, since Wrath of the Lich King just opened it up to everyone. And then when Cataclysm came out, it just alienated their biggest player base. I mean, sure, you still got people like me. Yeah, I'm pretty much a casual player, but I'll still play it because I still have fun with it, and I made friends there. So I don't see a reason that to quit, but they just didn't handle it correctly. I think they could have done a lot better. Number 9. Sonic 2006. Now, if you're new to my channel, or if you've been a subscriber for a while and remember my top 10 worst Sonic games, this was number 1. And I took down the video because I actually want to redo it, because I feel that I wasn't that fair with it, and I'm probably going to make it top 5 whenever I get around to it. But the problem with Sonic 2006 was it was mainly unfinished. It was largely unfinished. You could tell, it's like, didn't even feel play tested, because there was just so many glitches in there that like almost instantly killed you. And you could go on YouTube and search for Sonic 2006 glitches or why it's the worst game. And if you don't think it's the worst game, you're obviously deluding yourself. But it's just that bad. In fact, this game almost killed Sonic. I mean, when this game came out, people were just like, "No, man, Sonic's dead." They just said that Sega should just retire the character, and that's it. In fact, when Smash Brothers Brawl came out, a lot of people were saying, like, "Look, Sega, this is how you're supposed to handle your character because Sonic played perfectly fine in the subspace emissary." I mean, it was just, like, come on. If someone else takes your intellectual property and does a better job with it, you're screwing up somewhere. And essentially, Sonic 2006 is the Bubsy 3D of Sonic games. And it is. It's like we were supposed to have speeds, like unimaginable, realistic speeds. Sonic didn't move fast. In fact, Shadow and Silver ran about the same speed. All the other characters almost ran, that you got to, the Amigo characters that you got to play as, even when they were full out running, they were same walking speed. We were supposed to have day and night cycles. Well, that's not important. It's a nice aesthetic. And we were supposed to have Supersonic as playable. In fact, the hacker community finished the game. There's people who hacked the game. They have a mod. You needed a modded Xbox, a modded 360 for this. They finished the game. Sonic was faster. Everything controlled better, and they almost got Supersonic playable. And in fact, you were able to see the animation of him transforming, but that's as far as I saw, and this was years ago. In fact, this game was so bad that they had to go back to the drawing board and figure out why this game, what people wanted in Sonic games. And people were just essentially saying, just bring Sonic back to the 2D platform. And, you know, we had the Sonic Advance series, and, well, we had it before that, but that's where people were like, those were probably the games that were getting praised. It's like, because it's kind of what people wanted. And also, the story in it was stupid. There was that weird romance that Princess Elise, which a lot of people hate her for because she sees Sonic more as a friend, even though Sonic cares for her as only a friend, and you could kind of tell the way he kind of is, because his feelings towards her don't change, but he's just trying to make her happy. But Elise is falling in love with him, and that's kind of weird. It was just an overall all-out disaster. Let's see. Now we got Alpha Protocol at number 8. This game was supposed to be revolutionary. I remember reading it in Game Informer, and they were saying like it was supposed to be almost revolutionary. What we got was essentially a bad Mass Effect clone, is what we got. A lot of people did praise how the dialogue system was, and that's probably the only good things that they got from it. But here's why it's such a disaster. Sega published Alpha Protocol, and the game was received so negatively. Sega came out and said that they will not publish a sequel. Yeah, if there's an Alpha Protocol 2, Sega absolutely refuses to publish it. They said, no, find another publisher. We're not getting backstab. What was I gonna say? We're not taking it up the butt. What was I gonna say? Sega essentially said that we're not getting burned again. That's how bad your game's got to be for someone to say no, not again. And especially for Sega at the time, they weren't doing so well with a lot of games. Number 7, Mindjack Buggy as hell. One of the things that I saw was one of the boss fights. It was like a robot boss. It got stuck in the door, and it was shooting directly on the ground. It was like it had like these two guns that were like this, and it was like pointing them downwards. Like, wow, how bad is that? And like I guess there was like some things that people were talking about where you could like mind jack like an old lady, and then just like pull out an AK-47 out of nowhere, and it was just ridiculous. And some of the plots. One of the plot things, a lot of people just went like ballistic for is from the beginning to the game up until this point in time, you're doing something called mind hacking, where you essentially jump into the body of someone else and control them. Well, one of the main characters points out mind hacking, and the guy that you're playing as goes, "Mind hacking? What's that?" It's like, we've been doing this since the beginning of the game, and you're now asking what this is? Where have you been? That is okay. That is just horrible, 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 horrible narrative right there. Oh my god. In fact, there's a reason I thought about reviewing these two games, but I won't, because Angry Joe reviewed both those games, and he hit every nail on the head. He made every single point, and he just reviewed those games so perfectly that there is nothing that I could add to them. Let's see, number 6, Too Human. Too Human was supposed to be originally released for the PlayStation. And it got delayed and delayed and delayed. Now it was on the 360. And it looks like it's supposed to be someone's magnum opus, a masterpiece, if you will. And what we got was a very just bland story, just really bland, and a lot of people hated it. And one thing that I hated, and it was probably the biggest mistake, and still the biggest mistake that you could make in any video game, is to make the right analog stick to attack. This is for camera movement. This is what it should only be used for camera movement. You do not use this for attacking. You don't, okay? Move. Look around. And in case you didn't know, these can attack. These can attack. These can attack and use other stuff. But this, no. This is for camera movements. And that's what that's what Too Human got horribly wrong. And that's why I just thought that was horrible. I can't get over that. I won't even play Too Human because of that, because it's just absolutely stupid. Because I can understand, if you had to do it in like certain ways, like to make combos and shit like that. But no, you have to press and hold it in a direction to do it. It's like, that's retarded. Number 5. And this is a tie. The Atari Jaguar, the Panasonic 3DO, and the Philips CDI. The systems that were incredibly expensive. Well, I don't think the Atari Jaguar was. I think the Atari Jaguar was like 700. Was 300. While the 3D on the 3DO I think was 500, and the CDI was $700. Holy crap! That is expensive for a very terrible video game system that wasn't a video game system. The Atari Jaguar was also incredibly hard to program for. The controller was, holy crap, weird. It was like this weird box-looking thing, and it had numbers on it. And it was, like I said, incredibly hard to program for. And they said it was a 64-bit system, when really it was like, people were saying that it was like 24-bit, that it was really 32-bit. Some people were saying it was actually 16-bit, because it was just really, really hard to program for because of the way the processor, the way the hardware was configured. It was almost impossible to program for. Why do you think the games on it look like crap? The 3DO, the 3DO and the CDI were essentially like interactive movie. That's all that their library was nothing but interactive movies. And if you learn from the Sega CD, interactive movies are crap. I know Windows had interactive movies too, and still, those were crap too. Nobody likes interactive movies. Why did they think that a system that was essentially nothing but interactive movies was going to be a good thing? That's stupid. But, and it's, oh my god, and look at the Zelda CDI games. Those are probably the most advanced CDI games for the CDI. And they look horrible. They play horrible. They're just horrible games. Number 4. The Diablo III Launch. Another thing that Blizzard should have handled a lot better. I remember when I downloaded the installer, I went and said, okay, I got download the installer, double click, installs the installer. Like, okay, installs the installer. Then it goes to do it. Then the second, like 2 seconds later, it goes, the patch information is corrupt. Try downloading the patch information again. I was like, what? That makes no sense. So I was like, restarted. I closed it out, restarted. It's like, okay, it's the same problem. So then I deleted the installer and got rid of all the file, the installer file, re-downloaded it, same problem. I'm like, what the hell? Why can't I do this? Why is it telling me that the patch information is corrupt? It didn't even download anything yet. And I had the same problem with Mists of Pandaria, the beta. I didn't do the beta because of this problem, and I actually found out how to fix it, and I just never did. The way to fix that problem that I had was I had to go into like find the folder where that patch information was located, delete the patch, and then it loaded everything, then it installed everything just fine. Because the patch was, for some reason, I don't know why it was doing that. But everybody also remembers all of the error codes that it got. I think there was like, what, 4 error codes that popped up most of the time because people could not connect to the servers to play the game. And also the fact that they made the game, this is why it should not have been an online game. Everybody wanted to play this game. Everybody was looking forward to it. And making it online only essentially crashed their servers, made it, overwhelmed everything, because everybody wanted to get on and play it day one. That was a horrible disaster. It's like, no one could get on because it's basically 100 people trying to fit through, like, this door right here at once. It's not going to work. And it was actually so bad that one of the main businesses in Korea, I don't know, I forgot which one it was, but one of the businesses, the cyber cafes where you could go and play PC games, and that's a huge business in Korea. God damn, it's hot in here. It's one of the biggest businesses, and because people wanted to play Diablo 3. They weren't able to connect to the servers, and so they filed a complaint against, I don't think it was a Better Business Bureau, I want to say it was the International Trade Commission. They filed a complaint against, using some bureau, against Blizzard because of the fact that Blizzard handled the Diablo III launch just absolutely horribly. It was just a horrible way that they handled it. And I think the main reason why they had all these problems is because it requires an always-on connection, because they wanted to prevent piracy and all that other. Because they knew people were going to pirate. Because they thought it was like, oh, well, people are going to pirate this game, so we're not going to make any money. So let's make it online only for authentication and whatnot. And that was the biggest problem with the game. No one could get on because everybody wanted to play it. And it's kind of stupid that it's like a game that's largely single player that you have to be online to play. That's kind of stupid. But yeah, the Diablo III launch could have been handled so much better. Oh, and I actually forgot about this. For I swear what felt like, I think it was 2 months. You could not get a hold of Blizzard customer service. You couldn't. Like I was trying to call customer service to about character transfer because I couldn't get any online help, and all the customer service, you would get like responses like a week later. If you put in like a message with a game GM, you got like the response like a week or 2 later. If you were trying to call up customer service, every single time you called, they would say our hold queue is full. Try again later, and it'd disconnect you from the call. And this went on for like from the day Diablo 3 launched, for I swear it was 2 months, at least a month, because it wasn't until I swear it was like to the 3rd month after Diablo 3 was launched is when I was actually able to get into Blizzard's customer service. It was horrible. They could have handled it so much better. Number 3. Final Fantasy XIV, sequel to, essentially a sequel to Final Fantasy XI. They just screwed it up. It was, again, unfinished. There was, I think, from what I've heard, that there was absolutely no content. They were extending 30-day trials to near indefinite status and Square Enix issued 2 apologies saying, we're sorry about this, it's like, really? How did you... One thing that I don't get is, how is it Square Enix, who made Final Fantasy XI, made all other Final Fantasy games, looked at Final Fantasy XIV and its lack of content and said, yeah, this looks good. I mean, it's like, there was almost nothing there. It's like, it was empty. And a lot of people were complaining, and I heard I don't remember the full stories, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. Like, I think there's bugs and all that other crap. It was just mainly so unfinished, and they just shit it out. It's like, people were just pissed. And I actually wonder now if it's like still free to play. Number 2. I think this is Nintendo's second biggest mistake. The Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy was supposed to be essentially a virtual reality 3D gaming system, and it was advertised as portable. No, it wasn't. It was not portable at all. It caused eye strain and headaches, and pretty much people's eyes were bleeding out of their sockets. Everything was red. Some of it didn't even take. A lot of the graphics were just red and black. Not a lot of it even looked 3D, and it was just a disaster. The controller was horrible. The battery pack was on the controller, so if you're playing on the table, you could actually knock it out. And the way they just handled that was just absolutely stupid. I think the Virtual Boy was a good idea on paper, but it just not in practice. And my number 1 biggest, well, not actually a disaster, but it's technically a blunder. This was a blunder on Nintendo's part. Back in 1988, Ken Kutaragi, who was working for Sony, and he was known as the father of the PlayStation, was working with Nintendo to create a CD-based add-on for the Nintendo console. In 1991, they showed it off at a trade show, and I think it was a Super Nintendo with a CD add-on, or it was CD built into it. And essentially, to rival what the TurboGrafx 16 had for a CD drive, and also the Sega CD. But what happened is, Nintendo and Sony could not come to an agreement on how much the revenue would be split between the two. So Nintendo decided to back out of it, and they went to Philips to try and to see if they could get the CD for the Super Nintendo to be created. Well, the president of Nintendo, what was his name? Noraya Oga, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, was so infuriated that Nintendo backed out of this. And here's the thing, Nintendo left Sony with the blueprints. Essentially, they left Sony the blueprints for their own video game console. So he appointed Ken Kutaragi to essentially develop what would become the Sony PlayStation. Yeah. Nintendo is responsible for the Sony PlayStation. Hell, even look at the controller. The controller looks like a Super Nintendo controller. And in Nintendo, and because of the Sony PlayStation, Nintendo is also indirectly responsible for Sega dropping out of the hardware, the console race, and becoming a software company only. Because the Sony PlayStation destroyed the Saturn. The Sony PlayStation 2 destroyed the Sega Dreamcast. And also, by proxy, Nintendo's responsible for Microsoft getting into the gaming business. Because during the time of the Sony PlayStation, it was taking away Windows gaming. It was taking away PC business from PC gaming, and Microsoft didn't want that to happen because that's what the PlayStation was doing. Everyone was developing for the PlayStation. That was the system to develop for, and so what happened is, as Sony was working on the PlayStation 2, Microsoft started working on the Xbox to try and get back to win back some people, saying like, look, we got to make some money here because otherwise PC gaming is going to be dead. What can we do? So Microsoft made their own console, and that's how the Xbox is. So yes, because of Nintendo backing out of the deal with Sony, they're responsible for the Sony PlayStation's creation. They're indirectly responsible for Sega dropping out of the what do you call it? And they made Microsoft a rival of them by proxy because of the Xbox. That has got to be probably the biggest mistake that anyone could have made. It's like, why are you going to give? Because you ask yourself this question. You have blueprints for a CD-based game system. You're not going to make it yourself, but you're going to go to somebody who can make it for you and make a good quality product. So you go to them. Why would you back out of that? I can understand, like, well, we need to agree on negotiations, yeah, but you don't back out of it because you know that some company, you're leaving them. Nintendo left Sony the keys to the car that is the gaming industry, and therefore, well, it's a good thing that it's happened. You gotta kind of say that, Nintendo has gotta be kicking themselves in the ass for this. I know if I was Nintendo and I backed out of this, I'd be kicking myself every day because I created because not only did I got rid of my biggest competitor, but I created two even bigger competitors because of my bumbling idiocy of backing out of a deal and pissing them off. But that is my number one biggest disaster, blunder, however you want to consider that situation in the history of video games. That's all.